It's lunchtime, which today means leftover chili time. Yes! But not all foods fare equally well as leftovers, which is kind of weird. I mean, they're all getting older, under more or less the same conditions. So why does a foray in my fridge improve some dishes and make others gross? This is MinuteFood. Now, I'm not talking about whatever's in that month-old Tupperware forgotten in the far reaches of your fridge. That's almost certainly gotten gross because it's literally rotting back there. I'm talking about the changes that happen in relatively recent leftovers that you've stored properly. Okay, so there are a few main chemical processes going on in your leftovers, and these processes can affect different foods in different ways. The first is gelatinization. As you cook certain foods, like yesterday's chili, the starches and collagen in them start breaking down and forming a gel-like structure. As the food cools and sits, this process continues, turning it into something transcendently thick and luscious. Plus, aromatic compounds are actually attracted to this gel and can get trapped in there, helping enhance the flavors. But in other cases, the combination of gelatinization and cooling can make food hard or gummy or clumpy. Then there's equilibrium. Over time, molecules tend to move from areas of high concentration to areas of low concentration. Like, take pizza. As it sits, salt from the cheese and acid from the sauce will permeate through the pizza, seasoning all the various components. When you hear someone say that flavors meld or marry overnight, this is what's actually happening. But water too seeks equilibrium, which means that as food sits, moisture from one part of it, say the pizza sauce, moves into parts that were originally meant to lack moisture, like that nice crunchy crust, making them soggy. And via the very same process, as food sits in that dry, cold box we call the refrigerator, water can move out of the food altogether, drying it out. There's also oxidation. As food sits around, it comes in contact with oxygen in the air, a relatively unstable molecule that's keen to react with stuff. You can see the results of oxidation when you leave guacamole in the fridge. But oxidation can also affect the flavors in foods. For example, when the sulfury compounds in broccoli or garlic react with oxygen, they tend to get mellower and less bitter. Oxidation is responsible for one of the most polarizing things about leftovers, warmed over flavor, which happens when certain lipids, ones that are especially common in chicken and fish, react with iron and oxygen to create volatile molecules that some people find really gross. If you haven't ever noticed this particular funk, I'm certainly not going to describe it and draw your attention to it. But if you know, you know. And now you know why. Finally, there's basically everything that happens during reheating, if you're the kind of person that reheats their leftovers. Depending on what you're reheating and how you're doing it, this might do great things, like further breaking down proteins, or reinitiating the Maillard reaction, both of which can create delicious compounds. Or it might do not so good things, like drying out already cooked food. So there's a ton of complicated chemistry going on in leftovers. But you can kind of boil things down to one pretty good rule of thumb. Foods that improve by cooking longer, like stews, chilies, and curries, also tend to improve as they sit longer, whereas foods that cook quickly don't tend to fare as well the second day. But there are definite exceptions. I mean, who doesn't love leftover Chinese food? There's also a big personal preference aspect to this whole leftover thing. Like, not everybody actually notices warmed over flavor, and a dish's garlic mellowing out might thrill some people and disappoint others. Some people turn up their nose once fried food loses its crunch, but others swear by leftover fried chicken as a picnic food. With very few exceptions, I love leftovers. Partly because instead of seeing them as a replica of that very first meal, I try to see them as their own thing, sometimes a distinctly different thing. Like, that 3-day-old rice may be pretty dried out, but it'll be perfect for fried rice. And I won't ever get leftover tonkatsu to be as crisp or juicy as it was last night. But it's going to taste amazing today as a sandwich. Sometimes second-day food just needs a second chance at a great meal. Hey, can I ask you for 2 favors? First, give your leftovers some love, and don't toss perfectly good food. Food waste is a massive problem for the planet. And second, give MinuteFood some love and subscribe. We're a new channel and we're still trying to figure out if there's a big enough audience for our videos. If you love what we cook up, you can make sure we keep cooking it up by subscribing and sharing our videos with other food and science lovers. Okay, now back to those leftovers.